Hello and welcome to another episode of Latodio, where we bring you the wisdom of the world's best books in just minutes, helping you gain insights for a lifetime. In today's episode, we're discussing Dale Carnegie's timeless classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Whether you're navigating relationships at work, building personal connections, or simply looking to understand people better, this book has something for everyone. Its lessons are as relevant today as when it was first published nearly 90 years ago. Think about it. How often do we wish we could communicate better, resolve conflicts peacefully, or make a lasting impression on others? Carnegie's principles offer simple yet powerful ways to do just that. From building genuine relationships to inspiring cooperation, this book is a life manual for anyone who interacts with people. So, basically, all of us. Here's how today's episode will flow. Introduction to the book. We'll start with a bit of context. Why Carnegie wrote this book, the themes it explores, and the immense impact it's had over the decades. Chapter by chapter insights. We'll walk through each chapter, sharing the core ideas, practical examples, and memorable stories that make this book a must-read. Key takeaways. To wrap up, we'll distill the book into actionable lessons you can start applying today to transform your personal and professional relationships. So, whether you're tuning in during your morning commute or winding down in the evening, sit back and enjoy this conversation about a book that could truly change the way you connect with the world around you. Let's get started. Introduction to How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is a timeless classic that has transformed how millions of people approach relationships, communication, and influence. Published in 1936 during a period of economic turmoil and social change, the book quickly gained traction as a practical guide for fostering meaningful connections and achieving personal and professional success. Its principles remain just as relevant in today's fast-paced, interconnected world. The book's purpose is clear: to equip readers with actionable strategies for improving their interpersonal skills and navigating human dynamics with empathy and understanding. Carnegie's approach emphasizes timeless themes such as the importance of genuine appreciation, active listening, and understanding others' perspectives to build rapport and trust. By blending relatable anecdotes, psychological insights, and practical techniques, Carnegie crafts a guide that is both instructive and inspiring. Whether you're striving to excel in business, strengthen personal relationships, or simply become more approachable, this book offers a proven roadmap to fostering positive influence and enduring connections. Part 1. Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. Chapter 1. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. This chapter is all about avoiding criticism. Carnegie explains that people are naturally defensive when criticized and tend to justify their actions. He shares the story of Al Capone, who believed he was misunderstood rather than a criminal, illustrating how people rationalize their behavior. The key lesson? Instead of condemning, try understanding. Criticism rarely works. It's better to inspire change by showing empathy and encouragement. Chapter 2. The Big Secret of Dealing with People. Carnegie introduces the concept of sincere appreciation. He emphasizes that everyone craves recognition and wants to feel important. The story of Charles Schwab, a steel magnate who boosted productivity by praising workers, shows how far genuine appreciation can go. The takeaway? Be specific and honest in your praise. It's a powerful motivator. Chapter 3. He who can do this has the whole world with him. This chapter focuses on arousing an eager want in others. Carnegie advises framing your ideas to appeal to others' desires. He shares examples of effective persuasion, like the salesman who tailored his pitch to what his customer wanted. The lesson here? People care about their goals, not yours. Speak their language. Part 2. 6 Ways to Make People Like You. Chapter 1. Do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. This one's simple but profound. Be genuinely interested in others. Carnegie shares how showing curiosity about people's lives builds rapport. For example, Theodore Roosevelt would research his guests' interests before meeting them. The moral? People love talking about themselves. Show interest, and they'll love talking to you. Chapter 2. A simple way to make a good first impression. A smile can make all the difference. Carnegie explains that a genuine smile communicates warmth and openness. He tells a story about how a man transformed his workplace relationships just by smiling more often. Smiling makes you approachable. It's a small effort with a big impact. Chapter 3. If you don't do this, you are headed for trouble. Remembering someone's name is crucial. Carnegie recounts how Andrew Carnegie, no relation, made people feel valued by remembering their names. The lesson? A name is personal. It shows you care when you make the effort to remember and use it. Chapter 4. An easy way to become a good conversationalist. This chapter highlights the art of listening. Carnegie advises letting others talk about themselves while you listen actively. He shares anecdotes about how listening won him friends and influence. The key is to focus on the other person. It's about them, not you. Chapter 5. How to interest people. Talk about what interests the other person. Carnegie demonstrates this with examples of how asking about someone's hobbies or passions creates connection. The lesson? Tailor your conversations to the other person's interests to engage them deeply. Chapter 6. How to make people like you instantly. Show genuine admiration and find common ground. Carnegie illustrates this through stories of kindness and mutual understanding. The main takeaway? Find something to admire in everyone and be authentic in expressing it. Part 3. How to win people to your way of thinking. Chapter 1. You can't win an argument. Carnegie advises avoiding arguments altogether. Even if you win, you often lose the other person's goodwill. He shares examples of how walking away or finding compromise prevents conflicts. The big idea? Arguments damage relationships. Look for solutions instead. Chapter 2. A sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. Never tell someone they're wrong. Carnegie explains that directly contradicting others triggers defensiveness. Instead, approach disagreements tactfully and with an open mind. The lesson? Respect others' opinions, even when you disagree. Chapter 3. If you're wrong, admit it. Carnegie champions humility and honesty. He shares stories of leaders who earned respect by admitting their mistakes. Owning up diffuses tension and builds trust. The key takeaway? Admit your faults openly. It's disarming and endearing. Chapter 4. A drop of honey. This chapter is about beginning conversations on a friendly note. Carnegie illustrates how kindness disarms hostility and creates goodwill. The lesson? Approach situations warmly, you'll get better outcomes. Chapter 5. The Secret of Socrates. Get people to say yes. Carnegie explains how starting with agreements builds momentum in conversations. He compares this to Socrates' method of asking agreeable questions. The takeaway? Begin with common ground to make persuasion easier. Chapter 6. The Safety Valve in Handling Complaints. Let others talk themselves out. Carnegie shares how giving people space to express themselves eases tension. Listening shows respect and often leads to resolution. The lesson? Let them speak their minds before you share yours. Chapter 7. How to get cooperation. Involve others in decision-making. Carnegie highlights how asking for input makes people feel valued and invested. The takeaway? People support what they help create. Chapter 8. A formula that will work wonders for you. Show empathy by seeing things from the other person's perspective. Carnegie shares stories of leaders who diffused conflicts with understanding. The key lesson? Step into their shoes. It's transformative. Chapter 9. What everybody wants. Everyone wants to feel important. Carnegie suggests making people feel valued by recognizing their contributions. The moral? A little appreciation goes a long way. Chapter 10. An appeal that everybody likes. Appeal to noble motives. Carnegie explains how invoking people's better nature inspires them to act. The lesson? People often rise to the occasion when you believe in their goodness. Chapter 11. The movies do it. TV does it. Why don't you do it? Dramatize your ideas to make them compelling. Carnegie shares examples of how stories and visuals grab attention. The takeaway? Present your ideas in a vivid, memorable way. Chapter 12. When nothing else works, try this. Challenge people positively. Carnegie describes how setting friendly competitions motivates action. The lesson? People love a challenge when it's framed as fun and rewarding. Part 4. Be a leader. Chapter 1. If you must find fault, this is the way to begin. Start with praise before offering criticism. Carnegie shows how softening feedback with positive reinforcement leads to better results. The takeaway? Sandwich criticism between compliments. Chapter 2. How to criticize and not be hated for it. Critique indirectly. Carnegie shares how framing feedback as suggestions, rather than commands, preserves relationships. The moral? Be tactful in your approach to criticism. Chapter 3. Talk about your own mistakes first. Admit your own faults before addressing others. Carnegie illustrates this with examples of leaders who gained respect by showing humility. The key lesson? Vulnerability builds trust. Chapter 4. No one likes to take orders. Instead of giving orders, ask questions. Carnegie shows how involving others fosters cooperation. The takeaway? Make requests, not demands. Chapter 5. Let the other person save face. Avoid embarrassing others. Carnegie explains how protecting someone's dignity preserves relationships. The lesson? Be considerate of others' feelings. Chapter 6. How to spur people on to success. Encourage and praise improvements. Carnegie shares how highlighting progress motivates people to keep striving. The moral? Celebrate growth, it's empowering. Chapter 7. Give a dog a good name. Label people positively to inspire their best behavior. Carnegie recounts how believing in someone's potential often helps them achieve it. The key? See the best in others and communicate it. Chapter 8. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Frame challenges as achievable. Carnegie describes how breaking tasks into manageable steps boosts confidence. The takeaway? Simplify problems to encourage action. Chapter 9. Making people glad to do what you want. End on a high note by showing appreciation and making others feel good about their contributions. Carnegie emphasizes how recognition inspires cooperation. The lesson? Gratitude and positivity yield the best results. Here are the main takeaways from how to win friends and influence people. 1. Criticism doesn't work, understanding does. Think about it. When was the last time criticism made you feel great? Probably never. Carnegie argues that criticizing someone just puts them on the defensive. Instead, try understanding their perspective. For example, if a colleague messes up on a project, instead of saying, "You didn't do this right," ask, "What was your thought process here?" It opens up dialogue and shows empathy. 2. Give honest and sincere appreciation. People crave recognition, but it has to be genuine. Let's say your friend hosts an amazing dinner. Instead of a vague "thanks for dinner," say, "I loved the way you paired the wine with that pasta. It was perfect." Sincere appreciation makes others feel valued, and they'll remember it. 3. Talk about what others care about. Carnegie says people are most interested in themselves. If you're chatting with someone who loves photography, ask about their favorite shots or equipment. They'll light up. The takeaway? Frame your conversations around their interests, not yours. 4. Smile. It's contagious. A smile is such a small thing, but it can change someone's entire day. Imagine a barista at a busy coffee shop. Instead of a grumpy order, smile and say, "Hey, how's your day going?" That tiny gesture sets a positive tone. 5. Remember names. It's personal. A person's name is their favorite word. When you meet someone new, make a mental note of their name and use it. For example, instead of saying, "Hey, can you pass the salt?" say, "Hey, Sarah, can you pass the salt?" It makes interactions more personal and builds rapport. 6. Be a great listener. You don't have to talk a lot to win people over, just listen. If someone's venting about their stressful day, resist the urge to jump in with your story. Instead say, "That sounds rough. What happened next?" Listening attentively makes people feel heard and valued. 7. Avoid arguments. Nobody wins. Carnegie's advice is simple. Even if you win an argument, you lose goodwill. If someone insists their favorite movie is better than yours, let it slide. Say something like, "That's a great film. I can see why you love it." Disagree tactfully to maintain harmony. 8. Admit when you're wrong. It's hard to admit mistakes, but it's powerful. Imagine you're late for a meeting. Instead of making excuses, just say, "I'm sorry for being late, I didn't manage my time well." Owning up diffuses tension and earns respect. 9. Find common ground to build agreement. Start conversations by agreeing on something even small. If a coworker suggests an idea you don't fully agree with, begin with, "You've got a good point about," insert common ground, let's explore it further. People are more open to your perspective when you start with theirs. 10. Show others their importance. Everyone wants to feel like they matter. When working on a group project, highlight others' contributions. Say, "Your research really set the foundation for this report, it's great work." This simple recognition boosts morale and cooperation. 11. Use stories to make your ideas stick. Carnegie emphasizes dramatizing your points. If you're explaining a process at work, turn it into a relatable story. For example, imagine trying to bake a cake without knowing the ingredients. That's why we need clear guidelines. Stories are memorable and engaging. 12. Encourage others to be their best. Believing in people brings out their potential. If a teammate is nervous about presenting, say, "I've seen how thorough your work is, you're going to do great." Encouragement builds confidence and strengthens bonds. 13. End criticism with a compliment. When feedback is necessary, sandwich it between positive comments. Instead of, "Your report is sloppy," try, "You've got great ideas here, but tightening up the formatting would make them shine. Overall, it's solid work." This approach keeps morale intact. 14. Frame challenges as opportunities. People love a friendly challenge. If a coworker is reluctant to take on a task, frame it as an opportunity. "I know this is a big project, but you've got the skills to nail it. It'll really showcase what you can do." Challenges framed positively inspire action. Thanks for tuning in to Litodio. If you enjoyed this summary and want to keep expanding your reading list with quick, engaging insights, be sure to hit that follow button, subscribe, and share with friends who love books as much as you do. We'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode, so feel free to leave a comment. We'll link to the book in the description. Until next time, stay curious.